Our selection today will be Stand By Me. When the storms of life are raging,
stand by me.
when the storms of life are raging,
Stand by me.
when the world is tossing me like a ship out on the sea.
Oh, thou who rulest wind and water, stand by me.
In the midst of tribulation,
Stand by me.
in the midst of tribulation,
Stand by me.
when the hosts of hell assail, and my strength begins to fail. Oh,
Thou who never lost a battle, stand by me.
in the midst of faults and failures,
Stand by me.
in the midst of faults and failures,
Stand by me.
when I do the best I can, and my friends misunderstand.
Oh, thou who knowest all about me, stand by me. In the midst of persecution, stand by me. In the midst of persecution, oh yeah, stand by me. When my foes in battle array undertake to stop my way, stand by me. When my life becomes a burden and I'm nearing chilly Jordan, oh, thou lily of the valley, stand by me. Stand by me.
The Church Oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another, as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua the Mashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as their children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication, and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear, than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth. Therefore let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come in to him, and will sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, we're going to begin today's sermon in Exodus chapter 34. Exodus chapter 34, and we're going to read verses 10 through 20. And today's sermon is entitled, The Firstborn Sons of Yah.
Exodus chapter 34 and verse 10. And he said, Behold, I make a covenant before all your people. I will do marvels, such as have not been done in all the earth, nor in any nation, and all the people among which you are shall see the work of Yahweh. For it is a terrible thing that I will do with you. Observe you that which I command you this day. Behold, I drive out before you the Amorite, and the Canaanite, and the Hittite, and the Perizzite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Take heed to yourself, lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither you goeth, lest it be for a snare in the midst of you. But you shall destroy their altars, break down their images, and cut down their groves. For you shall worship no other God. For Yahweh, whose name is jealous, is a jealous Elohim.
Right, and this part of Yahweh's jealousy goes way outside of just the things that we normally think of when we talk about worship and things of that nature. Even when we put all of our time and energy into certain things, the jealousy of Yahweh is still activated when we display how much we put into vain things that are not going to profit our salvation, and then the little bit of time that we give him on the other end, it automatically activates the jealousy of Yahweh. And he says, I am a jealous Elohim. So that what is causing you not to worship Yahweh in its fullness, either you put that thing in check or Yahweh will put it in check. And you're probably not going to like the way he put it in check. But you have the opportunity to do that on your own. But if you don't do it, he will. Go ahead.
Verse 15. Lest you make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods, and one call you, and you eat of his sacrifice. And you take of their daughters unto your sons, and their daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make your sons go a whoring after their gods. You shall make you no molten gods. The feast of unleavened bread shall you keep. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, as I commanded you, in the time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib you came out from Egypt. All that opens the matrix is mine, and every firstling among your cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a lamb, and if you redeem him not, then you shall break his neck. All the firstborn of your sons you shall redeem, and none shall appear before me empty.
All right, verse 19, all that opens the matrix is mine. This is the womb, what carries a child. But then it says, in every firstling among your cattle, whether ox or sheep. And then comes the part that is male, because the firstborn could be a female. He's dealing with the firstborn male. When you talk about, even when we read in this book and we go through the lineage, this is why in most of those cases you won't see any of the women named in the lineage, because it's the male that carries the seed. Israel has a patriarchal system. Patriarch means a male system. It's the male that ends up passing that seed. The women, of course, will be married into another family and help produce seed of the male that she marries. So for that reason, as you're looking in the genealogy, you're going to see all these names of males. This gives people the impression that there were no females, on the earth when they start mentioning all of these things. But it is impossible for a man to have a baby without females. There are many females on the earth all throughout that. But because there's a patriarchal system, this is why you don't see the female names listed. Because once they marry and marry off, they're going to then be in the family of the man that they married. So then that would be a whole lot of names that would jump in and out. Once the males marry or do what they're going to do, their lineage is going to stay the same. The female lineage is going to change depending on who she marries. So that is the reason that that's not there. Go ahead.
That was verse 20.
That was it. Let's go to chapter 13. Exodus chapter 13. And we're going to read verses 12 through 16.
Verse 12. That you shall set apart unto Yahweh all that opens the matrix, and every firstling that comes of a beast which you have, the males shall be Yahweh's. And every firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you will not redeem it, then you shall break his neck.
If you redeem it, then you don't have to offer that particular thing up. So you don't have to sacrifice it if you redeem it by offering something else in its stead. Go ahead.
And all the firstborn of man among your children shall you redeem.
So you redeem them, so you don't have to offer them. Of course, we're not doing, sacrifice of people, but Yahweh is saying that the firstborn male belongs to him. Go ahead.
And it shall be, when your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is this? That you shall say unto him, By strength of hand Yahweh brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that Yahweh slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beasts. Therefore I sacrifice to Yahweh all that opens the matrix, being males. But all the firstborn of my children I redeem.
So because of the deed that Yahweh did in saving all of Israel's firstborn, he says, then all of those are mine. Go ahead.
And it shall be for a token upon your hand, and for frontlets between your eyes. For by strength of hand Yahweh brought us forth out of Egypt.
All right, let's go to chapter 4. Exodus chapter 4, and let's start at verse 21.
Verse 21. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, When you go to return into Egypt, see that you do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand. But I'll harden his heart, that he shall not let the people go.
Right. Once people have stayed in a certain way, stayed in a certain sinful path for so long, and Yahweh then is bringing forth judgment, he knows that at this point, they just want to repent to get the judgment off of them. But now Yahweh is making a point in dealing with Pharaoh, because he's going to magnify and exalt the children of Israel and his holy name through the dealings of how he's going to deal with Pharaoh. So at that point, he won't let him repent. Go ahead.
Verse 22. And you shall say unto Pharaoh, Thus said Yahweh, Israel is my son, even my firstborn.
So we have to then understand who it is that we're named after. See, we would never call Yahwehites. We would never call any of these other things. We would call Israelites. Yahweh did not even give us his name until after he had established us as Israel, after he had named us after his firstborn son. So we have to understand who we represent here on this earth. Go ahead.
And I say unto you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, even your firstborn.
So Yahweh then speaks of the nation of Israel as one man. He speaks of the entire nation of Israel as his firstborn son. The entire nation. This is my son. Let my son go that he may serve me. So Yahweh is talking on two levels, because it is Israel, the son of Yahweh, who we represent. It is Israel, the son of Yahweh, whose name we have. So then when he speaks and starts dealing with Israel as a nation, he's dealing with us as one son. Go ahead.
And it came to pass by the way in the end that Yahweh met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, Surely a bloody husband are you to me.
Now, when you deal with this highlights the problems of when Israel marries into other nations, because they're pushing their culture while we are supposed to deal with the culture that Yahweh has given us. And this is where we run into some of our biggest issues, because Zipporah was of another nation. She was of another culture. this circumcision was not something that was common unto her. So you have, on one hand, Yahweh is saying, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. Let my son go that he may serve me. He gives Moshe all of these things and say, make sure that you do all of these great wonders. And then the very next thing, he about to kill him. Now, it seems like Yahweh got some different kind of things going on, but the grace of having those kids, having his son not circumcised, had run out. See, we listen to the word that people say, grace, but we don't think about it in that next word that should come after that, which is grace, period. Grace don't last forever. So the grace in that thing ran out. This is it. This is the last day you gonna go without getting that kid circumcised. So now he got to go and argue with this woman. And you know it's an argument because the things that she says after it. You are a bloody husband unto me. This is not her culture. She is upset about it. And these are the things that when we deal with other nations, we don't consider that eventually something within our culture is going to bump heads with something in their culture. Now, that's even more difficult today because we didn't know our culture, well, to start with anyway. So you couldn't have tried to go over those things because you didn't have no culture yourself. We didn't find out our culture and we're finding it out on the back end. So then we got to work through that. But the generation coming after us won't have that same excuse. Go ahead.
Verse 26. So he let him go. Then she said, a bloody husband you are because of the circumcision.
Right. So he let him go. So if he didn't make her take care of that business, Yahweh was going to kill him. See, it's a whole thing about being, the son and the male. The part about being a patriarchal system is that Yahweh gonna deal with that man when it comes down to that situation. So it was him that was in jeopardy of being dealt with. Let's go to Numbers chapter 3. Numbers chapter 3, and we're going to start that at verse 1.
These also are the generations of Aaron and Moshe in the day that Yahweh spake with Moshe in Mount Sinai. And these are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priests which were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest office. And Nadab and Abihu died before Yahweh, when they offered strange fire before Yahweh in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. And Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest's office in the sight of Aaron their father. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying,
Now, you see here in verse 3, these are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priests which were anointed. And in verse 4, and Nadab and Abihu died before Yahweh when they offered strange fire before Yahweh. Yahweh really don't care who it is when they decide to go outside of the things that are commanded. Ain't no shortcuts, ain't no hookups, ain't no, well, my dad is this, or my such and such is this. That don't mean nothing to Yahweh. You violate, you get dealt with. Go ahead.
Verse 5, And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Bring the tribe of Levi near, and present them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister unto him. And they shall keep his charge, and the charge of the whole congregation before the tabernacle of the congregation, to do the service of the tabernacle. And they shall keep all the instruments of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the charge of the children of Israel, to do the service of the tabernacle. And you shall give the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons. They are wholly given unto him out of the children of Israel. And you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall wait on their priest office. And the stranger that comes near shall be put to death.
Verse 9, and you shall give the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons. They are wholly given unto him out of the children of Israel. So the Levites are then assigned unto the high priest to do the services. Go ahead.
Verse 11. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, And I, behold, I have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel instead of all the firstborn that opens the matrix among the children of Israel. Therefore the Levites shall be mine.
So now Yahweh has made a distinction. Instead of just everything that is the firstborn, I'm going in a different direction in dealing with this these Levites, this tribe of Levi. This is how I'm going to deal, instead of necessarily dealing with the firstborn as far as servitude goes. There are still things that deal with the firstborn. Go ahead.
Because all the firstborn are mine. For on the day that I smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I hallowed unto me all the firstborn in Israel, both man and beast. Mine shall they be. I am Yahweh.
Now, do we consider that all the firstborn males belong unto Yahweh, both man and beast? So consider that when people have animals and then those animals produce children, do you consider that that first one is Yahweh's? Do we even consider that the first of things belong to Yahweh? See, in being in a system that multiplies or just constantly causes us to increase in covetousness, we never consider that part of everything we deal with, there's a part that's supposed to belong to Yahweh. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 10. And like we went over before, when we talk about, these first fruits and these the offering of what we get out of our land, you're talking about your ability to sustain yourself, which is one of the greatest things that a nation, a sovereign group of people can ever have. All of these people that walk around, those brothers that were doing all of the study and calling themselves sovereign citizens, it only went so far because they couldn't take care of themselves here. They could file some papers and get out of a few things, but it ain't but so sovereign you can be when you still got to depend on somebody else to eat. Your sovereignty gonna end real quick. I got power. Yeah, next week you hungry. All you signing over every little bit of that power here. I give you everything. Just give me some bread. Right. All your sovereignty gone. It don't mean jack no more. It means absolutely nothing if you can't feed yourself. So when we go past these things and Yahweh starts talking about, and it'll be confusing to you because sometimes it's right in the middle of a war, and Yahweh starts talking about, I'm going to give you corn and wine. You're like, no, man, I need a Uzi. I don't need no corn and wine, man. These people coming at me, man. Yahweh is going way past that. Look, don't worry about this little battle. I got that. But I'm going to give you real power, real strength, real things to be able to sustain you. And if you got that, think about the problems that we have working for other people. Even if those people, and it ain't just got to be outside of another nation. Sometimes people tell you work for some of us and we'll be the worst ones to work for. Check ain't never down. Your schedule done changed. They don't tell you till you get there. So you mean so I ain't supposed to be at work today? Today? Man, I could have stayed in the bed, man. Once I get out of bed, it's on. Now I'm working now. I done got here. I'm doing something. You done messed up my day. I'm here. But when you have power to sustain yourself, nobody can threaten you with the possibility of losing your home, of losing, you know, your cattle, your this, your chariot to get you here. This is your stuff, and that stuff gonna stay yours. Here in the daughter of Babylon, we know that nothing is yours. There's some things that we don't even consider. That even when we get, I mean, we've talked about eminent domain and things like that, but we don't consider even in a vehicle. You give and sign your stuff over to the state. You don't really know that's what you're doing, because they're the ones that offer the title. Understand, anybody who offered the title owns the vehicle. You do know the state owns all the vehicles, right? And you do know you signed it over to them, whether you know that or not. Because anytime somebody can give you a title, that means they own it. So you think you own it because you paid for it. But consider this. If you leave it in the parking lot, in case you go out there and say, your car been out here too long in this parking lot, somebody come tow this car. When they come tow that car, they're going to print up another title. And whoever paid the towing fee get to own that vehicle. How can they do that if it was yours? See, there's a whole lot of things that's going on here in the daughter of Babylon that they don't explain. That even in getting the tag, that stuff is their stuff. They own everything. They just let you think you own it. This is a wicked system. It's not going to be so in our land. Ain't nobody going to be able to just come with some papers and take your stuff. Go ahead. Did we finish?
Yes.
Let's go to John chapter 1.
Oh, no. Nehemiah, right? Okay.
Well, why you asking me the question then, man?
Nehemiah chapter 10 and verse 32.
You got the same sheet in front of you I got in front of me, man.
Verse 32. Also we made ordinances for us, to charge ourselves yearly with the third part of a shekel for the service of the house of our Elohim, for the showbread, and for the continual meat offering, and for the continual burnt offering of the Shabbats, of the new moons, for the set feast, and for the holy things, and for the sin offerings, to make an atonement for Yisrael, and for all the work of the house of our Elohim. And we cast the lots among the priests, the Levites, and the people, for the wood offering, to bring it into the house of our Elohim, after the houses of our fathers, at times appointed year by year, to burn upon the altar of Yahweh our Elohim, as it is written in the law.
Right. We cast lots among the people, the priests, the Levites, and the people for the wood offering to bring it unto the house of Elohim, after the house of our fathers. So when it goes through that lineage of the male, it's not going to change. This is why they constantly are going to go after that lineage. Go ahead.
And to bring the first fruits of our ground, and the first fruits of all fruit of all trees, year by year, unto the house of Yah. Also the firstborn of our sons, and of our cattle, as it is written in the law, and the firstlings of our herds and of our flocks, to bring to the house of our Elohim, unto the priests that minister in the house of our Elohim.
So as they are setting back up the things that were supposed to be before, see, this is what we have to consider. After being separated from our land and the order of things for so long, then we have to do the same thing that we have read that our ancestors have done. We go back in the book and start backtracking. Okay, how are we supposed to do this? How are we supposed to do that? Now, we need to be going over those things now, so that it's not we're trying to figure all of this out as we enter into that land. We go back and we start reading, look, this is how this is supposed to be done. It says, take down these groves, these what they got set up as their little Christmas trees and things like that. All that stuff. We start seeing their images, all of those things got to come down. But you have to know that. Or else you're going into the land debating about this, debating about that. No, this got to come down. Go ahead.
Verse 37. And that we should bring the first fruits of our dough and of our offerings, and the fruit of all manner of trees, of wine and of oil, unto the priests, to the chambers of the house of our Elohim, and the tithes of our ground unto the Levites, that the same Levites might have the tithes in all the cities of our tillage. And the priest, the son of Aaron, shall be with the Levites, when the Levites take tithes. And the Levites shall bring up the tithe of the tithes unto the house of our Elohim, to the chambers, into the treasure house. For the children of Yisrael and the children of Levi shall bring the offering of the corn, of the new wine and the oil, unto the chambers, where are the vessels of the sanctuary, and the priests that minister, and the porters, and the singers, and we will not forsake the house of our Elohim.
We will not forsake the house of our Elohim. And what we have to consider is the scale in which Yahweh sets this up. The children of Israel bring all of these things to support the house of Yahweh. But as we get in our land, all of the nations are going to have to bring all of their offerings up to Yahweh's holy mountain. So as we support the priesthood, the rest of the world is going to have to support Israel. Yahweh has something set up. Each one of the sons of Noah has to have their rule, and Yahweh has saved ours for last. Let's go to John chapter 1. See, when we had our land, it was just us dealing in our area. When Yahweh sets this thing up again, Israel is going to be the top ruler of everything, without having to go in war and conquer everybody's land. See, that's how the rest of the families of the earth ended up with their power over other nations and nationalities of people. They just went out and invaded other lands. Yahweh in no shape, form, or fashion gave us the right to go in war against anybody in their land. Everything that we were told is if you war against somebody that try to oppress you in your land. We don't get to go fight and take other people's land. Yahweh saying, if you grow, I'll take their land and give it to you. Because at the end of the day, we represent Israel, his firstborn son. The earth is his, and he gives whatever he wants to give. John chapter 1, and let's start that at verse 1.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. The same was in the beginning with Elohim. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from Elohim, whose name was Yohanan. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not.
Right. Now, this confuses people, of course, when they deal with the whole thing of how they put this name Jesus in here. When you deal with the whole statement in the beginning, let us make man, and then, of course, we then being named after the firstborn son of Israel, this then makes sense. At that baptism, Israel then entered into this the body of Yahshua. Then we have him being right in the midst of his own creation, and his creation does not recognize or respect him for who he is. Go ahead.
Verse 11. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Elohim, even to them that believe on his name.
So now we have a whole nother level. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of Elohim. So now, becoming these sons of Elohim is much more of a deal than just being what your physical lineage is. Go ahead.
Which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of Elohim.
This is why we shouldn't spend any time at all dealing with these so-called tribal breakdown charts of Israel. None of that means anything. Yahweh is the one that's going to divide us by the tribal breakdown that we belong to. Go ahead.
And the Word was made flesh, and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Yohanan bare witness of him, and cried, saying, This was he of whom I spake. He that comes after me is preferred before me, for he was before me. And of his fullness have all we received, and grace for grace. For the law was given by Moshe, but grace and truth came by Yahshua the Mashiach. And when you even deal with this law of grace, this grace that was given, the law, the institution of animal sacrifice and all of those things was given by Moshe. But then the grace of this law of sin and death, that whenever there was sin, there had to be a sacrifice, something had to die to put man in that part of atonement. But Yahshua then became in that forever sacrifice for that thing. So now he stepped into that, but people have taken that grace and made it to mean some other things that it was never intended to mean. Let's go to Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8 and verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in the anointed one Yahshua.
Now, some people take that one line and they got a whole doctrine right there. They have not finished reading anything else within this chapter. This is their part right there. Anytime you start talking, they're going to give you this. And this ain't even the whole line. This is the part. There's no condemnation. No condemnation. So they believe that because of that, they can do whatever they want. And there is no righteous judgment that is going to come unto them. But of course, for you to believe that, you have to stop reading right there. You cannot go any further. So this is why, there's a whole lot of chants and one little word sentence slogans that are thrown out. There's no condemnation. You hear it all the time. Keep reading.
Who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
So there is no condemnation to them which are in Christ. That's where they stop. All right, let's read the part after that. Comma down. Who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. So they say they are in Christ, so they will not receive any condemnation. But then the very next part says, who walk not after the flesh. So then, now we got to figure out then, okay, well, what is walking after the flesh then? Because that wasn't just a blanket statement. It's a blanket statement if you stop in the middle of it. There's no condemnation to them which are in Christ. But there's more to that statement. Keep reading.
Verse 2. For the law of the Spirit of life in the Mashiach Yahshua has made me free from the law of sin and death.
The law of sin and death, that a animal had to be sacrificed to make an atonement for your sin, to put you in the right stead with Yahweh. Yahshua has made us free from that. Go ahead.
For what the law could not do, in that it was weak through the flesh, Elohim sending his own Son in the likeness of sinful flesh, and for sin, condemned sin in the flesh, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
So now we have this same thing again, that the righteousness of the law might be fulfilled in us, who walk not after the flesh. So this goes back to the very first statement. There is no condemnation to them which are in Christ, who walk not after the flesh. So then we have to then figure out, what is this walking not after the flesh then? Go ahead.
For they that are after the flesh do mind the things of the flesh, but they that are after the Spirit, the things of the Spirit. For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace.
If you're carnally minded, those carnal things are going to drive every part of your existence. So you're dead already, even though you live. Go ahead.
Because the carnal mind is enmity against Elohim, for it is not subject to the law of Elohim, neither indeed can be.
Right. So then people say, what? We don't have to keep the law. The law is nailed to the cross. That's the carnal mind that even says, I am not subject to the law of Elohim. So step one, they're already in a carnal existence because they're saying that they're not subject to the law. That's step number one. Go ahead.
So then they that are in the flesh cannot please Elohim. But you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit, if so be that the Spirit of Elohim dwell in you. Now if any man have not the Spirit of the Mashiach, he is none of his. And if the Mashiach be in you, the body is dead because of sin, but the Spirit is life because of righteousness. But if the Spirit of him that raised up Yahshua from the dead dwell in you, he that raised up the Mashiach from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by his Spirit that dwells in you. Therefore, brethren, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live after the flesh. For if you live after the flesh, you shall die. But if you through the Spirit do mortify the deeds of the body, you shall live.
Right. When we go through these things of going through our 24-hour fast, you find out just how much the flesh lies and tells you how much you have to have something, how much you need to have this, you need to eat right now. 15 minutes later, you forget you was hungry. But if you allow that flesh to have its way every time it start talking to you, you're going to have some serious problems. Because the flesh is very convincing. Go ahead.
Romans chapter 8 and verse 14. For as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim.
So now, as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim. Go ahead.
For you have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father.
So now, if this is another one that you hear, we have not received the spirit of bondage. So what the carnal mind then says is, if you're keeping any law, you must be dealing with that spirit of bondage. Keep reading.
The Spirit itself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of Elohim. And if children, then heirs, heirs of Elohim, and joint heirs with the Mashiach, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of Elohim.
The whole earth is waiting for the manifestation of the sons of Elohim. And it's not just about, okay, all these people are Israelites, so these are the sons. No, the sons got to come forth out of Israel, because they are not all Israel which are of Israel. So the whole earth is waiting on the sons of Elohim to be manifested, because the earth itself is not being handled right. When you talk about all the earthquakes and all of these things, all of the sinkholes, all of the problems that are happening on the earth, the increased heat, all of these things, the earth is waiting for you. The earth cannot even be the way that it's supposed to be, because the children of Yahweh have not been manifested yet. Go ahead.
Verse 20. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of Elohim.
Right. It says that when the children of Israel get in that land, it's going to blossom and bud. We know since 1948, a group of people have been in the land of Israel, and it's been absolutely nothing but war since the day they got there. War, murder, mayhem, corruption, all over in a cycle consistently since day one. And they are basically being the bullies that the West have set them up to be. Shooting rockets at some people who got rocks, got slingshots and sticks. They setting tires on fire so that the smoke will be thick enough that the people can't see exactly where, you know, they're shooting. But that don't stop. The Israelis, they shoot into the smoke. They don't care who they hit. Go ahead.
Verse 22. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. For we are saved by hope, but hope that is seen is not hope. For what a man sees, why does he yet hope for it? But if we hope for that we see not, then do we with patience wait for it.
Right. And then when you deal with that, there are some people that cannot move until they see exactly what it is they're supposed to receive, or they cannot move until they know exactly where it is they're going. That ain't faith. Go ahead.
Likewise, the Spirit also helps our infirmities, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought. But the Spirit itself makes intercessions for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And he that searcheth the hearts knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because he makes intercession for the saints according to the will of Elohim.
Right. This is a position that we all want to be in. That if we carry ourselves in a certain way, that if we try to walk in a certain way, that Spirit will make prayers for us that we really should be praying for ourselves. Because there's certain ailments that we may have that we don't even know. And that Spirit will say, look, they need this right here. They don't know they need this yet, but they need this. Go ahead.
And we know that all things work together for good to them that love Elohim, to them who are the called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified. What shall we then say to these things? If Elohim be for us, who can be against us? He that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall lay anything to the charge of Elohim's elect? It is Elohim that justifies. Who is he that condemneth? It is the Mashiach that died, yes, rather, that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of Elohim, who also makes intercessions for us. Who shall separate us from the love of the Mashiach? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword?
You would be surprised what will cause people to stop walking in the Word. Some people can deal with the Word as long as everything goes their way. As soon as there's any kind of persecution or any kind of push to make them grow, they out. Go ahead.
As it is written, for your sake we are killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. No, in all things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in the Mashiach, Yahshua, our Adonai.
All right, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 21. Deuteronomy chapter 21, and let's read verses 15 through 21.
Verse 15. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be hers that was hated, then it shall be, when he makes his sons to inherit all that which he has, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn.
So when you read this, it then gives you this indication that there's no moving around of who the actual firstborn is. But as you start reading a little later, you'll find that the firstborn can lose his right by how he conducts himself. But you don't get that right away when you read this, because he starts dealing with this situation of if one wife is hated for whatever she might have done and something like that, that you move around this inheritance that is coming to the kids. Go ahead.
But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn, by giving him a double portion of all that he has. For he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that, when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto them.
You have to then ask yourself, as he's dealing with, because this whole part, starting at verse 15, is dealing with the double portion that comes to the firstborn. Then the very next thing he goes into is, if a man has a stubborn and rebellious son which will not obey the voice of his father. See, a lot of times people believe that they pigeonhole Yahweh into a place because Israel did it. All the covenants are made with us, so we really don't have to, follow Yahweh like that. So Yahweh had to show us, you don't understand my word the way I understand my word. So then you have a situation where the firstborn will say, hey, I'm the firstborn. I really ain't got to listen like that. I ain't really got to do such and such. I'm already going to get a double portion. The very next line says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father. He's automatically dealing with that double portion that he was going to get. It is the very next thing that Yahweh goes into. You have to pay attention when you're reading stuff. Go ahead.
Then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him out unto the elders of his city, and unto the gate of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of his city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die. So shall you put evil away from among you, and all Yisrael shall hear and fear.
Now, today we have a situation where the force being the firstborn is more convoluted than it was in times past, because today you can have situations where men are having babies by the same woman. So where it might be this woman may give birth to a man's firstborn and then give birth to another man's firstborn. When you read that before, it was dealing with that one woman that produced this firstborn of this man. Nowadays, because of the society and the fact that we were not taught our culture, the fact that we're backing into this culture, there are situations now where it could be not this woman's firstborn, but still be this man's firstborn. So then that has made this part of the firstborn a little bit more convoluted than it was in times past. But all that is going to be restored when we get in our land. The things that Yahweh has allowed here is what he has allowed here. We will not be able to multiply and keep doing those things in our land. That's going to have to be repaired from that point on. That don't mean we get rid of everything that we got. We just start from that point and we have to walk accordingly. Let's go to Genesis chapter 35. You know, it was written that a man shall not, you know, be with, you know, his sister and all of those things. You start reading in the beginning of this book, you know, it was a lot of incestuous relationships in the beginning, because those people are starting to multiply from among those ones that are there. And as they are starting to multiply and all of these daughters are being born, they're going back and forth within those family members. Now, being that they were able to live longer, that would also push them further down that line as well, though, because of how long they were living. Go ahead, bro. Genesis chapter 35, and let's start that at verse 16.
And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, you shall have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin.
And you know, it's certain things that you just, you know, read and you really don't pay attention to. Each and every time we go past one of these things where the woman is giving birth, it is almost always a woman there delivering that child. This is not anything that a man has something to do with. And now you have all of these practices where these men doctors are delivering babies, and it is a wicked institution that no man should be standing in between another man's wife's legs waiting for the baby to come out. And not once do we even read this twisted thing. And if we just go back some years ago, they used to have whole groups of midwives. Matter of fact, there was a lot of those things among black people. But because some of those babies were then were not getting birth certificates, they were not getting all of those things, they weren't able to really chart our numbers like that. So they went through a push and made all of those midwives, they found problems with them so that they can do away with them. So then everybody would have to go and go to the hospital so all of those things could be documented. My elder was born in a house, and he said his baby crib was the top dresser drawer. But see, that mean them people ain't got all them the paperwork on you. See, that made them people harder to deal with, because they ain't have all that paperwork on them. And people got to come to your house. Excuse me, was it a baby born in here? Man, get on out of here. They couldn't even chart their purchases like that to see if they bought a crib. He ain't bought no crib. He put a little blanket inside that top drawer. There he is right there. That take care of the business. Go ahead.
Verse 19. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, that is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. And Israel journeyed and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar. And it came to pass, when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah his father's concubine. And Israel heard it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon and Levi, and Yehuda and Issachar and Zebulun.
So Reuben, the firstborn, has then laid with his father's concubine. Go ahead.
The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Paddan Aram.
Now, remember how the word in Deuteronomy says that there's one that was if a man had two wives and one was hated and the other one beloved, he may not take the one that's loved and switch it around and give that child the right of the firstborn. So when you look at verse 23, the sons of Leah, Reuben, all right, so he was the firstborn. All right, go to verse 24, and then it says the son of Rachel was Joseph and Benjamin. So now you got Joseph was the first of Rachel. Now, which wife was supposed to be first? Rachel. Rachel was supposed to be the first one anyway. See, there was some slickery that went down. Rachel was the one that he was supposed to be working for. Things, the father slid the other daughter in there, so now Leah ends up having the firstborn. Watch how Yahweh take care of things. But then that firstborn ends up laying with one of his concubines. Okay, now let's go to Genesis chapter 49. See, a lot of times folks think they can out-slick Yahweh. So they think that they can plan some stuff, think they can do some slickery, and Yahweh, he don't stay up that late at night. So we can catch him before he wake up. Genesis chapter 49, and let's read verses 1 through 4.
Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I might tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, you sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water.
Unstable as water. He says, you are my firstborn, my might, the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. But you're also unstable as water. Let me tell you something. Water has no form whatsoever. Water will become whatever it is contained in. If water's in a square, it's a square. If water's in a circle, it's a circle. If water's in a rectangle, it's a rectangle. If water on the ground, it's going to run wherever that ground goes. It has no standing form. So it's not able to be what it's supposed to be. It is affected by its surroundings too much. See, you got a rock. You take that rock anywhere. That rock's still going to be the same shape and form it was. You drop that rock in the water, it's going to be a rock in the water. But it ain't going to change what it is. You put that rock in a square box, it's going to be a rock in a box. It ain't going to change its form. Water is going to change its form by whatever is surrounding it. And you start reading the things that what happened concerning Reuben, this firstborn. He couldn't stay steadfast in the things that he was supposed to do. Because he's affected by everything that surrounds him. If he's in this position, then he's that. If he's in this over here, then he's that over there. Why can't you just be steadfast in who you are? Go ahead.
Unstable as water, you shall not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then defiled you it. He went up to my couch.
You know, when you deal with unstable as water. See, we got all these fancy names for things now. See, they would give us some kind of name for an ailment. You be schizophrenic, or you be all of these things, and you know, here you would go to a doctor. When we depend on Yahweh, check this out. When they said the water was bitter, he prayed unto Yahweh. He said, yeah, go get that tree over there and put the tree in the water, and it's going to make the water sweet. But what ended up having to happen, though, you had to admit to Yahweh that, hey, something ain't right here. I want to drink this water, but this water not right. You have to first deal with that there is a problem. See, the food that we eat is supposed to be our medicine. We have ailments, and there are foods that will cure those ailments. We just don't know what they are. For everything that there can be a problem on this earth, there's also a fix on this earth. We just don't know what that is. Think about how many times they walk past that tree while they crying. That water, it stink, it bitter, it nasty. And they walk by the tree still crying. That water, it nasty, it stink, it's bitter. And they walking by the tree. The tree didn't just grow. It wasn't no magical tree. The tree was always there. You just didn't know the tree was there. So Yahweh don't begin to fix the problem until there's an acknowledgement that there is a problem. I got a email, and it was talking about Mariah Carey finally dealt with her situation of being bipolar, and you have to consider that finally dealt with. Now, if you ever deal with and look at some of the things that some of the things of Mariah Carey, they would call her like this great diva, right? So that was supposed to be a nice word. What they meant was she was hell to deal with, absolutely hell. She couldn't, whenever it was anything that was going on, everything had to go her way. If it didn't go her way, it was absolutely horrible. She had to have certain things in the dressing room, certain people, you know, they call Whitney a diva. Certain people, they say, oh no, don't look at me in my eyes. What the hell are you, a pit bull? The hell wrong with you? You know, don't look directly in my eyes. What the hell is wrong with you? So she finally deals with this, but do understand, that's after 2 failed marriages. She's had 2 divorces at this point. Now, 2 divorces, who knows how many other relationships and how many friendships are ruined before she finally says, okay, I will accept that I have a bipolar issue. And now she's taking medication. But what about those 2 failed marriages that who she blamed those on? By not dealing with those issues. See, this book says Yahweh is our Elohim and all the things that we call upon him for. But the question is, do we call upon him to repair those things? Let's go to 1 Chronicles chapter 5.
You know, brother, it's a shame because you've mentioned it something before. Why does Yahweh have to take everything from you before you realize that you need help? I mean, even us in this room bounce off each other because we all know different herbs and stuff like that.
Right.
And you'll mention to somebody, you need to start taking this, you need to start taking this. You ask them a couple weeks, did you start? No, it's an excuse.
Right.
But you were able to buy that pint of alcohol that you have every week.
Right.
You couldn't put that away to get that medication.
Got that? Well, that was some medicine right there. I got, you know. See, we like that medicine. See, hey, boy, we get a chance to get some of that monkey sweat. Boy, we'll buy a big, tall cup of that monkey sweat. Right, right. Killing you faster. See, but that's that thing, man, where when it says it's a cry for wine in the street. See, let a man drink and forget his problem. But you know what happens when you wake up in the morning? As soon as you open your eye, that problem like, good morning. Did you sleep good, boo-boo? That problem ain't went no damn well. It's right there, greeting you when you wake up in the morning. You might well go ahead and wake up and give it a kiss. There you go. Come on, problem. Let's go. Right. Because it ain't went no damn well. Your drinking only made you forget it. But it's going to be right there. Reminding you, now while you was passed out, let me tell you what happened. You did this, you did that. What? Yeah, you did all that.
Created more problems that you have.
Right. See? The problem ain't went nowhere. Go ahead, bro.
1 Chronicles chapter 5 and verse 1. Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but for as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel.
So, the actual firstborn should have been by Rachel anyway. So then, the situation presented itself that the right of the firstborn was given back to the one who it should have been anyway. But see, we think we're going to be slick and do all of these things and think Yahweh ain't going to catch up to it. You can stay up all night planning your little slickness. Yahweh don't go to sleep. Go ahead.
And the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright.
Uh-huh.
For Yehudah prevailed above his brethren, and of him came the chief ruler. But the birthright was Joseph's.
So then, even though that there is this situation of the birthright, Yahweh said when it comes time to deal with certain things, I'm not going to even use the birthright. Said the earth and the fullness therein belongs to him. He used it how he want to use it. Yehudah was not the anywhere near the firstborn. Yet he said, hey, the right of the rulership is given to him. And then Yahshua then prevailed to come out of that tribe. Not the first or the second born. Let's go to Genesis chapter 25. You know, when you deal with that brother and talking about, you know, bouncing off one another, and, you know, you tell as you're fellowshipping and you talking to people and you find out, oh, well, you should use this herb. And, you know, then you use those things and you start feeling better. You have to consider where that comes from. You know, that, you know, hey, without you talking to that person, you would have never known this other thing. Man, we have the same situations. We have problems where one person might need this. One person might need the car repaired. We'll never say anything in the room. There's 5 brothers that work on cars. One person may need a job, but they ain't gonna say nothing. And it's 2-3 people that's in charge of hiring that can help that person get somewhere. So the ultimate part of the help is never gotten because there's still some pride in there that keeps us from dealing with things. Genesis chapter 25, and let's read verses 19 through 34.
And these are the generations of Esaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begot Esau, and Esau was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padamaram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. And Esau entreated Yahweh for his wife, because she was barren. And Yahweh was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in your womb.
So 2 nations shall come out of one house. Go ahead.
And 2 manner of people shall be separated from your bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red, all over with a hairy garment. And they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. And his name was called Jacob. And Esau was 80 years old when she bare them.
Now, in verse 20, Esau was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife. Then, verse 21, And Esau entreated Yahweh for his wife because she was barren. All right, that was 40 years. He was 40 years old, right? Verse 26. And after that came his brother out at the last sentence of that, and Esau was 80 years old when she bare him. So he was 60. So he was 40 when they got married and he prayed. He was 60 when the prayer was answered. So I think we forget all of those things. See, we've been 20 years later, we've been forgot what we prayed for. I mean, we forget where we put our keys. You know we done forgot a prayer from 20 years ago. I know I put my keys on that table. No, you did. Your keys on that dresser back there. So if we can't remember where we put the keys, you pretty much count on that we done forgot that we have prayed to Yahweh for some stuff. Then he turns around and starts delivering the stuff, and you trying to figure out what the hell is this? This is stuff you asked for, my son. I didn't ask for that. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. I don't know what this is. No, man, you asked for this. When I asked for that? 20 years ago. What? Right. See, now, so what you gonna do? Open your mouth and tell Yahweh, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to. No. This what you asked me for this, and I've been working on it for you. See, it took me 20 years to work on it for you, but I got it for you. You gonna tell Yahweh you don't want it? Right. Go ahead.
Verse 27. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Yaakov was a plain man dwelling in tents. And Esau loved Esau because he did eat of his venison.
Right. Esau was a more manly man. Hey? He went out in the field. See? Yeah, he a manly man. The other dude got them soft hands like Benel back there. You ever shake that man's hand? That man got the softest hands ever. So Yaakov was soft hand dude, and the other one was this field hand. Go ahead.
But Rebekah loved Yaakov. And Yaakov sowed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Yaakov, Feed me, I pray you, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. Yaakov said, Sell me this day your birthright. And Esau said, Behold, I'm at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?
Right. So all it takes is a certain situation, and now the birthright is up for sale. Go ahead.
And Yaakov said, Swear to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
Thus Esau despised his birthright because he was willing to sell it for so little. So let that be a lesson that, soft hands can rule. So don't feel bad, but now you shall rule, my brother. Romans chapter 9. Romans chapter 9, and we're going to start that at verse 4.
Verse 4. Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, and the glory, and the covenants, and the giving of the law, and the service of Elohim, and the promises.
So all of the authority was given unto Israel. Yet you have all of these churches, you have all of these denominations, you have all of these things, but they have no authority. The authority was given unto Israel. They're supposed to be teaching under the authority of Israel. They are teaching and throwing out the authority of Israel. But Yahshua gonna set all that right. So all the little doctrines and all of the things that the people, you talk to people and they don't hear you, oh no, I can't deal with that. when things are restored in their rightful order, when they go to their so-called teachers, it's going to be an Israelite saying, no, that ain't right. You can't teach that. This is what, so instead of dealing with all of those people, Yahweh going to deal with the one in charge. That's going to stop them fake doctrines right there. Every time they teach one of them fake doctrines, something happened to them, they're going to walk away from that fake doctrine. Go ahead.
Whose are the fathers, and of whom, as concerning the flesh, the Mashiach came.
Right? So the Mashiach was an Israelite, just like the apostle Saul said he was an Israelite, and just like he said all of my brothers are Israelites. Yet, you go and talk to somebody, tell them you're a Hebrew Israelite, they say, well, what is that? And there's absolutely no Christianity without the teaching of the Israelites. They have no even introduction to the word without Israel. Go ahead.
Who is over all, Elohim blessed forever. Amen. Not as though the word of Elohim has taken non-effect, for they are not all Yisrael, which are of Yisrael.
And if we considered those things, then we would try harder to walk in the spirit of things and not under this fake tribal breakdown chart, not according to the flesh, but walk according to the spirit, for they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. So your lineage ain't gonna get you in the kingdom. As it is written, except a man be born again, he shall not enter into this kingdom. So you can go in there with your family tree and see if you can convince Yahshua. You can call them people 3andMe, DNA.com, and you can call all them people. See if that work for you. But it ain't gonna mean nothing to Yahweh. He already knew your lineage anyway. Go ahead.
Verse 7. Neither, because they are the seed of Abraham, are they all children, but in Esaac shall your seed be called. That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not the children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. For this is the word of promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Esau, for the children being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of Elohim according to the election might stand, not of works, but of him that calls, it was said unto her, the elder shall serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated.
It says before they had done anything, before anything had been put into play, he already knew the heart of those two individuals. Go ahead.
What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with Elohim? Elohim forbid. For he says to Moshe, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then is it not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of Elohim that shows mercy. For the scripture says unto Pharaoh, even for this same purpose have I raised you up, that I might show my power in you, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. Therefore has he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will, he hardens.
Therefore he has mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will, he hardens. And when he hardens them, they will not be able to repent. See, they think that it is of them why they won't repent. They think it is of them why they won't seek the right help for things. No. They've walked in things so long that Yahweh has hardened their heart. And a hardened heart can't be reached. No matter what you say to a hardened heart, you can't reach it. You can do whatever you want. You can say this, you can present this evidence, you can present that evidence, but you ain't going to reach a hardened heart. You're practicing. They have made a decision already that this is how they're going to conduct themselves. This is what they're going to believe. This is what they ain't going to believe. This is what they're going to do. And this is what they ain't going to do. You can talk all night. Ain't going to change nothing. Because a hardened heart is going to stay in the gift that they in. Go ahead.
Verse 19. You will say then unto me, why does he yet find fault? For who has resisted his will? No, but, O man, who are you that replieth against Elohim? Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, why have you made me thus? Has not the potter power over the clay of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor?
Right. Have not the potter power over the clay to make of the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? Out of the same lump of clay, it can make an honorable one and a dishonorable one. Go ahead.
What if Elohim, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory, even us, whom he hath called, not of the Yehudis only, but also of the Gentiles.
Right. Even us, whom he has called, not of just the children of Israel, but also of the Gentiles. So then they have the opportunity to be sons of Elohim as well. So these are the things that we have to consider as we know that tonight at sundown, we will be taking part in our Feast of Weeks, also known as Pentecost, and we will be making our appearance. All the males will make an appearance before Yahweh, and we have to conduct ourselves accordingly, that we are to make an appearance. So that's all that we're going to do today. We will be back here sundown, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We will be back to celebrate our Feast of Weeks. That's all we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.